good thing about it, especially doing the FUE method, is that you don't get instantaneous results. What happens is your hair on the back and the side of your head is body hair. That's why men don't lose the hair on the side and the back of their head when they go bald. You have more hairs on the side and the back of your head than you actually need. So that is why they microscopically extract each individual hair. They then transplant it into the places on your top of your head where you want that hair. But as your good doctor just explained, if they're any good, as mine was, I kept even my hairline, I kept it receding even though they'd added hair to it because I wanted to keep it looking subtle. But the good thing is that once they've transplanted in the hairs, they actually fall out, and it's the root that stays, and it takes between 9 and 12 months for the hairs to actually grow and appear that you've transplanted, which is quite a subtle change, so it's not an immediate... You don't come into it looking like Cher. You know what I mean?
Thank goodness for that. But I mean, you do. So the hair that they transplant does grow because I mean, you look at. I sort of look at Wayne Rooney, who had. I don't think his procedure was the same as yours, was it? But he.
I'm not sure which one.
He had his at a very young age, and it seems to have not quite worked in that he seems to have top ups all the time.
Well, I've had 3 procedures. I mean, I had it 3 times because you can't really do as many as you might like to fill in all the bits that need filling in the one procedure. Also, it is quite brutal and quite painful, and there is only so
you've put me off already with that.
Well, yes, but it's kind of it's an afternoon of pain and a couple of days of discomfort, and then really it's fine. I think that perhaps with Wayne Rooney as well, what you still need to do is, because obviously I still have hair that will fall out, so in conjunction with doing this procedure, you do have to take finasteride, which is the drug that you still take to stop your hair falling out, which if a lot of young people just took that drug, so obviously in conjunction with their doctor and consulting with whomever is necessary, that would actually prevent the hair falling out in the first place. So if I were not to keep taking a low dose of that drug, then it would be great. The places I had transplanted would still stay, but there would still be other parts of my hair that recede. So I'm wondering whether that's what's happening with Wayne Rooney, and maybe he's not taking that medication.
Well, it's a fascinating subject. Christo, thank you. That's Christo Fufas. You can catch his fantastic show on LBC every Saturday and Sunday morning from 1. So have you been through this? Is it something that you've thought about doing, but maybe in the end decided not to? What informed your decision-making on this, and is it just about vanity? I think it's got to be partly, hasn't it, at least? 0345 6060 973. This is LBC. I'm Ian Dale. It's 4:15.
Ian Dale at Drive.
You know, to be part of it. And guys, I know I'm very privileged.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Women, it's psychological.
Not taking that medication.
Well, it psychologically must be far worse than it is for men. Let's talk to Spencer in Nottingham. Hi, Spencer.
Oh, hi there. How are you doing?
Hello. What would you like to say?
Well, no, just find your show very, very interesting and informative. And I've personally been the recipient of several hair transplants over the years. And one point I'd just like to highlight is I kept all my procedures very much private and personal to me. And I recently told my story in the paper a couple of years ago, and it was a big, big deal for me to come out and tell my story. However, once I did, I was overwhelmed with support with regards to what I'd done. People found it of great interest. So it's interesting that people have this stigma that you'll be ridiculed for it. I understand that, and I felt that I was going to be as well. But surprisingly, people found it of great interest and wanted to know more about the procedure.
I think they would. I was talking to J. Louise Knight before I came down to the studio, and I said, look, if I walked in tomorrow and had a hair transplant, you would rip me to shreds, wouldn't you? And she said, yes, I would. And she said, and if we didn't do it to your face, we'd do it behind your back. Well, I mean, and in a way, it's quite natural, I think, for people to sort of ridicule dramatic changes of appearance. I don't think people should be blamed for doing that necessarily.
No, I agree with you, and unfortunately that is the society we live in, where people will, it is a bit of a social stigma around hair loss and want to do something about it. However, it is, it's a hidden epidemic, hair loss, and a lot of people are going through it and dealing with it, and it affects them in such a way. So unfortunately, I don't think we will ever get past that, people wanting to poke fun at people for wanting to better themselves, especially with hair restoration. However, it's surprising the number of people that find it of great interest, and I'm sure your show is going to benefit a great number of people with regards to educating them to establish that they can actually be performed.
You're quite young, aren't you, Spencer?
No, I mean, I'm 40 now.
Oh,
but when I
sorry,
had my first procedure, I was 24 years old.
Right.
And I've had several procedures over the years. I had bad surgeries to start with, and as a consequence of that, learned the hard way, had repair procedures. And
but psychologically, at the age of 24, obviously, I mean, we all know people who are, I mean, I've got a friend who's around that age who is bald as a coot. And it doesn't bother him whatsoever. In fact, he thinks he gets more dates because of that at his age than he would if he had a full head of hair. I don't know how he works that one out. But, I mean, clearly for you, it impinged on you quite badly psychologically then.
Drastically so, yes.
Just your sort of sense of self-worth.
Indeed. Confidence, self-esteem, self-worth. And I think obviously everybody is very different. Everybody deals with things very differently. However, I can assure you that, I actually, help people now in this industry. I've got a website called Spexhair.com where people can get information. But what you'll find is 24-year-old guys who start to lose their hair, you will find the vast majority of that number of people are deeply affected by the issue initially.
Yeah.
And obviously let's face it, I mean, people would potentially rather have hair than not have hair. It's the process of dealing with losing your hair and how it affects, individual to individual. Granted, I think it also helps in a peer group that you are. If a lot of your friends are losing your hair, then obviously it kind of seems a little bit more acceptable. But if you're the only one losing your hair,
sure,
it obviously can affect that individual.
The ones I find interesting are the sort of guys in their 20s who shave their heads, and there's a lot more people do that now than I think did that 10 years ago. And I'm thinking, why would you do that when you've got a good head of hair? Why would you shave your hair off? Because in 20 years' time, you won't even need to bother. Pete, thank you, Spencer.